Hi, thanks for watching. Okay, so this video is part two, talking about authenticity. Authenticity, and I can't stress enough how important I think the issue of authenticity is for people who are dealing with cluster B issues. Okay, cluster B, narcissism, borderline, antisocial, histrionic, people who have addiction issues, or even let's say subclinical issues that are sort of in that neighborhood. Okay. So we're talking about authenticity. And basically, I try to think of authenticity. I try not to define it too carefully because I think that when we get too eloquent about these things, I think sometimes we oversimplify. All right. So I want to think of authenticity just in terms basically is just sort of the mystery of being in one's own league and being in your league and being where you belong, basically. Okay. And basically, when you try to imagine, like if you think of it as like a menu, like, hey, I want to imagine my league and then I'm going to go find it, you're never going to find it. You have to only start with where you're at. You can't imagine your league, basically. So I really, at least this has been my experience, and I really encourage people. I encourage people not to try to guess or imagine, because that's exactly the thing of guessing or imagining where you belong. That's exactly not being in your league. You know what I mean? The mystery of being in one's place where you belong is to just not go looking for where you need to be. You see what I mean? It's sort of like it's the mystery of just what are the present issues, okay? And those present issues, that is the beginning, okay? But only by engaging in those issues can you actually sort of start to live in your league, basically. And you'll never, you can't anticipate it. You can't guess what it'll look like. You have to. There's only one answer, and the answer is to deal with what's right in front of you, okay, and just deal with it. Engage in the world. But here's the thing: there's two ways to engage in the world. You can either welcome the load, welcome the burden, or it's not welcome. You see what I mean? And that not welcome, that right there is a barrier. And so you can't even be in the place you're supposed to be. Okay. You can't even be in the place you're supposed to be. And then the only alternative is to go and be in places that are not for you. You know what I mean? Like being out of your league or being sort of out of where you don't belong. And so there's no authentic solution. It's like checkmate. So really, like the title of this part two is basically the difference between getting and having. Getting and having. That's very getting and having. These are very abstract terms, but let's look at it from the place of welcoming where we're at. Okay, that is the mystery. That's the mystery of opening yourself to what you don't have to get, because it's already there right in front of you. You see what I mean? So like all the problems that are present, we're all billionaires. We are all billionaires in issues. Okay. Even if you don't have shit in the bank and you got no class and you're nobody, you got issues. Okay. We all have billionaire abundance of issues in front of us. Okay. They may be disgusting, but they're in front of us. Okay. The issues that we have may be how we feel about ourselves. They may be issues about, just concerns or problems or difficulties or just shameful shit that's in our life, whatever, just disgusting, whatever is the pile of garbage that's in front of us that is our lives. Or just if we don't have garbage, just the issues that are in our lives, the things that are present, immediately present. Okay, that is an abundance. It may be disgusting, but it's an abundance. And there's only two options. One is welcoming the load, taking on the load of all the real issues around us, or not welcoming. Okay. And so if we don't have a welcoming attitude to take it on, okay, then we can't really engage with what's immediately present. Okay. And all that's left for us is to imagine where we belong as opposed to actually being there. Okay. So that's the difference between having and getting. Having and getting, because having is what's already there. Okay. What's already on your front porch. Let's say the front porch of your being, of your existence. We have to be metaphorical, right? Every existence has a front porch and a front yard, and all of us in our front porch and front yard of our existence, we've got a billionaire abundance of crap or things to be dealt with, to be engaged with. Okay. And so you don't have to get that because it's already there. You have it already. You see what I mean? We already have an abundance. Okay. So the idea is that, do we welcome what we have, or do we not welcome, and then all that's left is for us to get things that are, it's not what we have. You see what I mean? I think the psychology of getting is different from the psychology of having. Okay, it's very different psychologies. I think the psychology of getting has more anxiety and has more stimulation. It's more kind of a hyper arousal. And I think we need to examine this, because I think psychologically it may seem very pleasurable to get things sort of like out of this world, sort of like, whoa, this thing came to me. Um, and I mean, there will always be a mixture of having and getting. Okay, so I don't want to be an absolutist. And this is why when we try to get too eloquent about these topics, we tend to subconsciously oversimplify. Okay, there will always be a mixture of having and getting. There will be asteroids that fall on us, in the good sense, like, hey, look at what came to me. That's part of the combination of fortune. The fortune involves a combination of what you've got and what comes to you. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that things will not come and that we will not have gettings and we will get things. You know what I mean? Like things that sort of come out of the sky, out of this world. Good fortune. So the problem is that some people, they get too invested in getting, but they're not dealing with the front porch billionaire abundance of all the things that they already have. And I mean, have things they have to deal with, you know what I mean? That are present to be dealt with. Okay. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that, authenticity to me is engaging with what's present to be dealt with. Okay. Engaging, but you can't do that if you don't welcome the load, the burden of having to deal with those things. Okay. So when we talk about, this dichotomy of having and getting, I'm not saying one or the other. Okay. I say versus, but I'm just saying comparing them as different categories. I'm not saying there will not be getting, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the part of having what we already have, that is a key element of authenticity. Okay. And in order for that to work, in order for that to be alive in us, we have to welcome the burden. And I think for a lot of us, honestly, and this is something I see in all these true crime cases. Okay. And this is something I've seen in my own life, struggling, because I have been diagnosed with a cluster B disorder, and my recovery has been way too slow. And that's why I do these videos, because I think, we can enjoy the entertainment, so to speak, of these true crime cases, and we can sort of learn something about ourselves, but those of us who really want to have a better life and to be healthier, I think it doesn't really make sense to learn anything from a true crime case if it doesn't illuminate us to maybe do things to improve our lives. Okay. Because let's be honest, if you want to talk about a true crime, let's talk about a true crime on a massive scale. I think all of humanity is a true crime. Okay. We as a collective species, as human beings, you look at how we're getting along between countries in this world. You look at how we're wasting our time with all this fighting over ideologies. And ideology is a dream. Actually dealing with real life municipal, county, state, neighborhood issues. Okay. How does an ideology help you when you're at the ground level of just dealing with real boring, grinding issues? Like say, lightning strikes or whatever, and you got to take a tree down, or there's issues in the neighborhood about, let's say, there's been a lot of break-ins, and what are we going to do? Just like the logistics of life. Okay. Ideology is not part of that. Ideology is a fantasy. Okay. So we get so lost on all these ideologies. And I mean, yeah, ideologies are important to an extent. You got to have some philosophy of life, but really just the nitty gritty, down to earth issues of, like, say, a school district, or let's say just a county or a city, those practical issues, at the ground level, ideology is not really, it's not really useful. And let me give a good example of that, because I want to defend what I'm saying. Because let's say, you come from, let's say, a leftist ideology. You come from an ideology of big government and big spending, okay, and basically just providing all these services. The idea that you provide services by funding and prioritizing, sort of like increasing the budget, basically. Okay, so when you look at, like, say, from the point of view of like the local elementary school, okay, the local elementary school, okay, all right, in reality, what's going to happen is in the practical day-to-day of dealing with the elementary school, there are going to be some aspects where some left-wing ideological ideas might apply sometimes, okay? But to properly run the school, you might actually have to have some right-wing ideas come in there to actually make it administer the school in a healthy way. You see what I'm saying? So, like, it's funny because, like, theoretically, let's say, or philosophically, it may make sense to have public schools available, and that is a left-wing idea. The idea of public schools, the idea that some government actually provides schools that people don't have to pay tuition for. Okay, so that's kind of the left wing. But then in the actual administration of the school, are we wasting money? Are we wasting money? Are we not properly managing the school's resources? So in other words, you might want to bring some, like, right-wing ideas into the management of the school. Also, like, kind of left wing, you want to treat people as like infants. Basically, you want to infantilize people. So, like, say, from a left wing, it's not just the money for the school, but also they want to emphasize more the cartoons, entertaining the children, everything presented in playfulness, and kind of avoiding discipline, because discipline's sort of a right wing thing. But you combine the two together, where you have, like, say, the left wing in terms of having the public school, having the funding to actually exist, for the public school to exist. Okay, but then in the implementation of the school, maybe more discipline, maybe not so much cartoons and coloring books, maybe not so much fun and indulgence and making children to be babies, but maybe making children to be young adults, and really making it hard, and failing more kids and making them repeat grades, and or making them go to summer school or after school to really, high standards for tests, more like China and Japan, where the kids really learning and they're really rising to standards and developing themselves, and also forcing the parents, putting parents' responsibility. If you don't help your kids with your homework, you're in trouble. You know what I mean? Like, within reason, but you know what I'm saying, without invading people's right to privacy, but actually being more disciplined, more right wing in attitude. So when you look at something like, say, a public school, it's not so cartoonishly left or right. There are sort of left-wing aspects. There are aspects of left-wing thought that might actually favor, let's say, a good public school system. But if it's all left-wing, if it's all ideologically, fantastically left-wing, you might have a terribly managed and terribly administrated public school system. So the thing is that when you get too much caught up in ideologies, you don't really have the flexibility to blend different ideas to deal with the actual day-to-day boring, grinding realities of the actual enterprise of actually running a municipality or a school district or whatever. So the bottom line is that the ideologies, in a way, they're kind of like cartoonish distractions. Okay. And so, this is another way that we're not dealing with what's present in front of us and welcoming what's actually there. It's sort of like you're sort of in a fantasy. And so when we talk about authenticity and we talk about dealing presently with what's around us, with what we already have, okay, in a way, when we deal with ideologies, we're thinking of what we can get, as opposed to what we have. What we have is not one or the other cartoonish extreme of thinking. And actually what we have, and to deal with what we have, is just the grit of dealing with what's presently to be dealt with, on the ground level. And that is, that can't be reduced to an ideology. That's just the dealing with what's there. You know what I mean? And so I think that if we look at humanity presently and how we're stuck in this very naive, this sort of like this situation of naive confrontation over ideologies, and just we just can't even get along with each other, and we're all spending all our time thinking about Washington, D.C., when in our local areas there's so much nitty gritty grinding reality to be dealt with, and all lost in all this ideology stuff. Now, I do agree that things like the border and like immigration, those are issues, okay? But it's not like there's one ideology that can solve that problem. You know what I mean? It's just not that simple. You can't just close the border, okay? But on the other hand, you can't just allow just a flood of people coming in. There has to be dealing with the logistics of it, leaving all the ideologies aside, just common sense. And so basically, when I look at people today, just like say, just in the naive ways we bicker over politics and so we're so over focused on Washington D.C. versus just local, just ordinary present issues. And just the way that we're just so caught up in consumerism and just the consumer insanity. I think the whole humanity is a true crime. We are a true crime. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, I love looking at true crime because I think it shows us so much. These are like cases where we really get to showcase like real breakdowns in people. And whenever you look at a breakdown, just like when you look at like a Shakespearean tragedy, you are seeing reflected in these extreme examples, things that we can all remind ourselves, things that we can learn about ourselves. Okay. And one of the most important patterns that I see in people who fall into major crime, major breakdowns is what these really are. They're not so much crimes. They are crimes, but what's really fundamentally happening is people are going through major breakdowns in their lives. Major breakdowns. They're going off the rails. And what we're finding, I think, over and over again is that eternal problem, okay, of the balance between what we have and what we expect to get in life, okay? And you can't have even what's in your front porch, okay? The billions and billions of abundance that you have in your front porch to be dealt with if we don't confront the issue of welcoming and then engaging with a welcome attitude. You know what I mean? Like welcoming what's there. Because if you can't welcome what's in front of you, it's a non-starter. There's no reality. You will not be authentic. I mean, this is my opinion. I know people have criticized me that I sound like I'm declaring like from the heavens. I'm not. I haven't gone to Mount Sinai. I don't know what's what. I say things like that. It's my opinion, right? Where I grew up and the way I was raised and the family and the culture that I came from, you say your opinion, but you say it very definitively. But it is my opinion. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm just saying, here's my opinion, but it's my belief. It's my belief and my opinion that if you can't welcome the load of crap that's in your front porch, the front porch of your existence, okay, and just deal with it, with a welcoming of the load, okay, you might as well not even start. Because there's going to be no authenticity. And you might as well not ask yourself and ruminate and wonder, why do I not feel real? Why do I not really know who I am? Don't even bother, because you haven't even started. You haven't even started with the first step to even make it worthwhile, to even make it a meaningful question. You know what I mean? I don't mean to be rude, but that's my opinion. You know what I mean? And so, like, the real confrontation we all have, the one deciding factor that I think we all have is whether we can welcome what's in front of us, no matter how awful it is. Because the alternative is that you have nothing. I mean, I say poetically, right? Nothing authentic is what I mean. It's kind of like when St. Paul said, without love, you're nothing, or whatever. I think what St. Paul was really saying was really, you don't have anything authentic if you don't have love. And I think what he meant by that was the philosophical love. I think the love of kind of, I want to say, welcome what is. I'm being liberal. I'm being a little flexible here, but with our poetic minds, I think we can understand that it may be something like that. Okay, so as we try to parse this idea of what we have versus what we want to get in life, okay, I'm proposing that welcoming is the first step to even discussing, even having the possibility of engaging with what is present for us. Okay. And I can only speak from my circumstances. Okay. And so when you listen, if you guys listen to what I describe, okay, don't try to find exactly in your lives what matches what I say. Use what I say as an example all right, illustrating so that you can see what applies to your life, because it may be that in your life it's not exactly how it applies to mine. Okay, but I'll just give an example of things that are on my front porch, the front porch and front yard of my existence, that I have not either welcomed or I've dealt with without welcoming. Okay, and how I lost the opportunity to have authenticity, and I've lived a largely inauthentic life. Okay, and in fact, I don't even claim that I'm even authentic right now. I think in many ways I kind of lost the opportunity as a young person to be really an authentic person. And maybe I'm just offering maybe lessons, or I'm offering the experience of decades of not having success, let's say, maybe as a way of sort of help motivating people who are younger, who have better opportunity to maybe start living authentically. You know what I mean? So don't take me as an example of somebody who made it and somebody who knows what it's like to be authentic. I'm just saying, from my mistakes, also people can be motivated maybe to not make those mistakes. So some examples of things that remain on my front porch in my billions of abundance, my billionaire abundance of crap in my front porch of my existence, that are there to be welcomed. you know, um, I mean, it's not all bad stuff either. Like, nobody has all bad stuff, and that's a lie. Anybody, even who lives in the worst neighborhood and the worst family, even the people who are the least attractive, the least intelligent, whatever, nobody can say that they only have bad things in their front porch. That's bullshit. Okay. And in fact, we shouldn't even really consider whether they're good or bad. They're just things to be dealt with. Okay. They may hurt, they may be very awkward, but nobody can say that they only have bad things. Okay. And even if you have bad things, okay, that isn't a way. When you say things are bad, you are in the not welcoming. You're not welcoming. You got to get to the place of welcoming. That's not to say they're good. It's just to say you welcome the load, and it's not a question of, oh, they're actually very good. No, it's just a load to be dealt with, you know. And granted, I can't take away the danger of life. I can't say that things are not dangerous. I can't take that. I'm just saying, if you want to be authentic, you have to be courageous and just take on what's there, regardless of the danger. Maybe, however, be smart about it. I mean, I'm not saying to be stupid, but yes, life can be dangerous for some people. Life can be maybe unjust, and maybe in some cases, let's say if you're growing up in a family that's too abusive, maybe it is too much to ask for you to process all that load of what's there, because if the family is so abusive, it may be better actually to go to a foster home. But even when you get to the foster home, you still have to deal with all the feelings and all the issues, you know, and you either deal with them or, you know, or you're not being, or you run the risk of having a life that's not authentic. So, it sounds unjust, but that is just the way it is, So basically, to try to give some examples from my life of how I have failed to deal with the billionaire abundance of issues in my life. Okay. Now, I've had some good things in my life. I've had a lot of, actually, I'll be honest, I've had a lot of privileges in my life. Okay. I did not grow up poor. Okay. I did not. Okay. Or poor economically. All right. Let's be very careful. I grew up poor in other ways. All right. Because I think poverty is not just money. There's a lot of aspects of, like, say, even economics that are not just money oriented. Okay. So let's say in my family, there wasn't, let's say, raw dollars. There wasn't like raw, purely financial poverty. No, I was actually, and it wasn't like we were wealthy either, but it was like that. It wasn't, we were not poor in that way. Okay. But we had tremendous poverty in terms of social ability. My family is very socially inept. We really are not very socially sophisticated people. Okay. And also, we are kind of immature in my family. So we have a poverty of maturity. We're almost like children. So there's like a poverty in terms of maturity and social ability, social intelligence, emotional intelligence. Okay. So even though I grew up, let's say, in a neighborhood that was not poor, okay, we were like the poor people in the neighborhood, because we were sort of like the people who did not know how to relate to people, did not know how to have emotional maturity. And also, like, say, I could even tell as a youngster, that the way my parents dealt with problems, I could sense it. instinctively that they dealt with problems in a very immature, childlike way. Okay. And that made me feel as though we had poverty in our family, poverty, because we didn't have that. And it's such a valuable thing to be able to relate to people, to be mature, to have social savvy, social sophistication. We were sort of like idiots, like idiots in the social and emotional world. Okay. And you could feel it. You could feel it. And it is poverty. And poverty feels like crap. It feels like crap. There's not anybody who tries to put a word on it, like, oh, it feels like despair. No word can substitute what it really feels like. It just feels like shit. Okay. It feels like shit. But that was what was on my front porch to deal with. Okay. And I didn't like the feeling of that. Okay. And so instead of welcoming the feeling, because I couldn't welcome that, you don't welcome that. So then around the issue of, let's say, social sophistication, emotional intelligence, maturity, instead of dealing with that terrible feeling I had, I started kind of like detouring around it, trying to act like I was maybe a little more sophisticated, trying to act like I was more socially, or let's say emotionally sophisticated, when in reality I wasn't really dealing with the actual situation that I was in. I got into acting. You see what I mean? Got into acting, and sort of, or almost like just trying to like put myself in places where I could just not deal with that issue. You know what I mean? Like not wanting to deal with that, not wanting to just let it sit on me. You know what I mean? Because it seemed unfair to me, and so I didn't accept it. So what happened was I lost my welcome of something that was present. Okay. And had I welcomed it and taken it on just as something to have faith that if I just let it load me and just carry on, dealing with having that without having the answers, without trying to come up with a scheme to get around it, to improve on it, to compensate for it, then I could have metabolized it, and that would have actually gotten me through and out of the poverty. But you have to go through the welcoming and the metabolizing through it, as opposed to detouring around it and cheating around it. Okay. Likewise, it became very clear to me that because my family was kind of dorky and we're kind of weird, we're sort of like the Nicole Kessingers, even worse, actually. Nicole Kessinger is actually better looking than my family, but in our family, we were just kind of like the dorky weirdos, And so obviously, like nice looking girls, attractive people, like the kind of guys that you would want to be friends with, we didn't fit in with the nice people, the beautiful people, And so basically I had that feeling like if I was attracted to somebody, I wasn't my place to go talk to them or to deal with them. So I started feeling really bad about that, And instead of just letting it be and just accepting my place and knowing with faith that I have it, if I accepted that place and felt bad about it and just engaged in the world at my level at that place without trying to do tricks and learning how to talk to girls and trying to make a project of it, whatever. Instead of making a project of it and trying to get around just feeling the injustice of it, why didn't I just let it load and welcome it? And just welcome being the person I am, and the difficulty I have without trying to come up with solutions and engineering and orchestration and maybe making myself appear like I'm cooler than I really am and blah, 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 all this bullshit. Maybe trying to relate to girls that really I knew in my heart were not in my place. You know what I mean? Just why didn't I just eat the bitter pill, and welcome the feeling and just carry on, you know what I mean? Just carry on with the faith that by metabolizing and just processing that in that way, maybe I could have come out with a development where I would have grown an oak tree instead of a fake Christmas tree, that is not even real. You know what I mean? And chasing a fake Christmas tree that I probably couldn't even keep. You know what I mean? So it's like sometimes when you actually accept the crap, the things that feel the worst, if you actually accept and carry it on with welcome and let that burden carry and metabolize, you can actually grow an oak tree where there was just a pile of crap, as opposed to buying a bunch of fake Christmas trees, and in the end with a fake Christmas tree, you got nothing. You know what I mean? So it's just an example, the difference between what you already have versus the idea of investing too much in what's going to come to you, what you're going to get. Sometimes, you're going to get a lot of things in life, but focus on welcoming what you have, no matter how terrible it is, because no matter how bad it is, it'll convert into a forest of real trees as opposed to a bunch of fake trees. So very important issue, what you have versus what you get, and welcoming. So thanks for watching.